And at this time, we would like to thank you for your participation. We're still in Zoom, obviously, and we will do our best to try to facilitate a smooth meeting. I heard that some of you are experiencing power outages or have some internet problems, so hopefully we will remain connected throughout the meeting. So I'm asking that everybody silence its cell phone or any other phone that is around you so we don't have any interruptions. And with that, I will call the meeting to order and ask the clerk for a roll call, please.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez,
Here.
Ms. Baines, Mr. Freitas,
Here.
Ms. Gutell,
I'm here.
Mr. Brazil, Ms. Vielma,
Here.
Mr. Helm,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
I'm
Mr.
here.
Williams.
Yeah,
Thank
am I-
you.
Thank you.
Ms. Dean, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Cryer,
Here.
Mr. Levia, Ms. Austin Tibbetts, Mr. Cunha,
Yes.
and we have a quorum.
Thank you. So I'll move us to our next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes for our April 28th meeting. So meeting minutes were sent last week. Please take a minute to review them. And when you guys are ready, I would love to hear a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. Can we take a roll call for the approval, or is just consensus? Remind me how we do the approval.
Yes, I can take a roll call. Ms. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Ms. Gutell,
Yes.
Ms. Vielma,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Cryer,
Here.
thank you. Mr. Cunha,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you all. So now we're going to open it up for public comments. This is time for any public members who would like to make comments on matters that are not on the agenda. So can you let us know if there's anyone that would like to make public comments?
I do not see any members on, and through the chair, Keith, do you have any public comment? I do see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is Manuel Cunha still an alternate? Or is he an actual member?
Manuel's currently the primary member from the CAC Industry Ag Group.
Thank you.
Who's the alternate, Morgan?
I believe it's, is it Chris?
Chris.
Yeah, Chris McLaughlin is the alternate for that specific group.
Okay, thank you. So just to confirm, we don't have any member of the public wanted to make comments, correct?
Actually, I do have one more member who would like to speak. Mary
Okay.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Mary Elizabeth here in Stockton, California, and I want to just call up the importance of whatever we can do to reduce our greenhouse gases, to improve our resiliency, to help attenuate these extreme heat events that we're having, and to please reach out to the communities to help them get excited about applying for those centers that can help people when we're now in the fire season to have some clean air to breathe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth, for that comment. Anyone else?
I do not see any more public comment. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'll move on to some brief comments on my end. As your chair, just want to congratulate the staff for bringing forward at the last board meeting the item in which funding is going to be available for individuals to receive air cleaners, especially for those that might not have a proper air filtration system in their houses. With this wildfires becoming more common in our region, this is an important matter, and I look forward to hear what is the plan of the air district to staff to implement and roll out this program. But just wanted to congratulate the staff for taking the initiative on doing this, which complements really well with the pilots that have been announced since May, where cities and counties and other public entities are able to apply for clean air devices for larger gathering spaces where people can have access to these clean air spaces. But now this additional funding that will be made available for individuals is, I believe, extremely important, and wanted to recognize that. So with that, I would like to open it up for Morgan to give us the comments on behalf of our APCO.
Thank you, Naimeen. I'll keep it short tonight because we've got a packed agenda, and most of the stuff I would give updates on is going to be talked about. But just two quick housekeeping items. One, just because it caused a little bit of confusion, I just wanted to make you all aware that our normal clerk to the board, Michelle Franco, who you normally receive emails from, she's currently on a temporary leave right now. And so right now we have an interim clerk, Miss C. Tao, who's here tonight. She's clerked some meetings in the past, so she's filling in. So you'll be receiving emails from her in the interim period until Michelle is back. And so just wanted to let you guys know that in case you have any EJAG related issues, you can email myself or C, and we can help you out and look for those emails coming from C currently. And then secondly, just wanted to I think Ryan, who filled in for me last meeting, had talked about the current vacancy we have for one of the ethnic small business owner positions. We had that recruitment open until the end of May. We had not received any applications to date, so we extended that that opening through I believe August 4th, so another 6 weeks or so from now. We have heard from one of the members from SB who I think may have someone who's interested, so we're reaching out to encourage that person to apply. But along through our channels, if you guys know of people who may be interested and who maybe meet that criteria, I would encourage you to have those people take a look at the process and consider applying so we can start the next step. So just wanted to put that back on your radar. It has been extended to August 4th currently right now.
Can you, Morgan, I have a question. So this is throughout all the counties. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have like a county statement.
Correct. So that for those two positions, the two ethnic small business owner positions, it doesn't matter what county, as long as they're residents of the Valley Air Basin.
Perfect. Thank you.
And we'll send you all a link to where the application is and the kind of the flyer that goes along with that, so you guys have that and have that available if you want to forward it to anybody.
I do have a follow-up question on that. So in the past, I know that there's a subcommittee that has been part of the interview process once applications are reviewed. Can you remind us who's part of that subcommittee right now? And if any of the current members would like to join this subcommittee, how would they go about it?
Yeah, so that committee is a little bit separate than EJAG itself. It's actually appointed by the APCO. Now, historically, there have been EJAG members who have served on that committee, along with potentially CAC members or others that the APCO. It's part of the district's environmental justice strategy, establishes how that process happens. I know in the past, Marvin Dean, one of the ethnic small business owners, was part of that. Mr. Williams has been part of that in the past. Mr. Hamilton has been part of that, and even going back beyond that, there's a whole host of other people. And so I think as we get to the point where we're ready for that, if there's people that are interested in participating with that, by all means, let me know, and we can, as we fill that out, we can. There's always some representation from EJAG on that, and we'll do that again this time.
Thank you. Is that it? Any or questions for Morgan at this point before we move on to the next agenda item?
I have my hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Go ahead.
Okay. Morgan, could you just restate what you said about who picks the committee and what they base those standards on?
The committee is picked by the executive officer of the air district, and I off the top of my head I don't recall exactly what the criteria was, but in the past, just basing on who's been there in the past, there's generally been members of EJAG. There's been environmental representative from the CAC, who was Mr. Hamilton at the time, as long as there was a small ethnic small business owner in the past, which was Mr. Dean. Before his passing, and so it's and I think even going back farther than that, there were some other representation from community groups and others that were a part of that. But that it's, I think they'll and there's usually at least one member of the district that sits on those as well. And then that committee will generally interview the members or the applicants, and then put forward a recommendation to the governing board, who ultimately has the appointing authority for EJAG.
I'm sorry, Morgan. I thought I understood you to heard you say that the executive office uses a standard of criteria.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's not like super prescriptive where it says this person, this person, this person. But I just don't off the top of my head recall, but it's in the district's environmental justice strategy.
Oh, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Any more questions for Morgan? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. So Morgan, I think we move to the update on attainment plans and rules. Would that be you or another staff member?
Jesse is here this evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Jesse Fierro. I'm the Director of Air Quality Planning here at the district. You have your usual rule and plan updates in your packet. I want to highlight some things that are coming up soon. Next week on Wednesday, June 28th, we will be holding a workshop on Rule 4460. This is our Petroleum Refinery fence line air monitoring rule. That workshop will be on Tuesday at 4 p.m. It will be available via Zoom. Next Wednesday on the 29th, we will be holding a workshop on our NSR rule. You can also attend that via Zoom. That workshop will be at 5:30 in the evening. Those are the only workshops that are scheduled now, but in July, I expect a couple of our projects to be having workshops. One of those is our LDAR rules, our leak detection and repair rules. That's Rule 4401, and all the other rules listed with that one. So I believe we'll be posting draft rules and a staff report and holding workshops on that in July. I also anticipate that we will be scheduling a workshop to discuss our PM 2.5 contingency measures SIP update. We adopted PM 2.5 plan back in 2018, and that plan has been mostly approved except for contingency measures, which are very challenging. EPA also recently proposed to disapprove contingency measures from our 2016 Ozone Plan. And so we'll be taking an amendment to our board, hopefully later on this fall, to try to address those issues. So we'll be holding a workshop. I'm thinking July, maybe early August. As always, you can email me if you want any updates on anything. You can also check our workshops page. There is also a lot going on our 2022 ozone plan, but I'll be telling you more about that later in the agenda. So I'm going to save those details for a little bit later. That's all I have for my verbal updates, but I'm happy to take any questions.
So
Yes,
you
I
don't
do.
have a date? Sorry.
I had my hand up, Chair.
Keith, give me one second. I have, is that Keith the one who just spoke? Because I cannot see your hand when you raise it, because I don't know about the others, but your camera cuts off, so I can only see like from your neck down. So I don't see when you raise your hand. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh.
I'll go after you.
I mean, are you physically looking for my hand, or I'm pushing the button on the
I
Zoom?
don't see either.
Through the
Are you-
chair, I believe Keith, I believe you are logged in two devices, so you probably might be raising your hand on the other one, and we're not seeing the one that you're actually being videoed on.
Oh, okay.
I hope that makes
change
sense.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you now. I'm sorry. Let me try this. There's my
Now
hand.
we see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just your email address, Jesse.
Yeah, it is Jessie, JESSI .Fierro. That's F as in Frank, IERRO @valleyair.org. And my name is also spelled in the rule and plan update if you need to double check. My email isn't listed there, though. I should probably change that.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Jerry? I do have a question, Jerry. You mentioned that you don't have a date for the contingency measures workshop. You just said July or August, but not a date yet.
That is correct. I mean, personally, I'm eyeballing July 19th, but I haven't confirmed it yet. So please check our workshops page to confirm. We should announce that in a couple weeks.
And for the refinery one, the petroleum refinery one happening this coming week, we have the organization I represent has a lot of community members living near the refinery in Lamont. Express interest. Is the interpretation going to be provided, or they need to?
Yes, as always, our notice said that Spanish interpretation can be requested. I don't know for sure whether interpretation has already been requested, but I will go on and coordinate with our interpreters to make sure Spanish interpretation is available. It's probably already happened. I will double check.
Thanks. I'm
you.
just mentioning that because oftentimes these community members, they are getting used to, like, for instance, 8617, they don't have to request it. It's always provided. So I don't want them to show up and then not having interpretation.
Oh, I appreciate you making that connection. I'll be cautious about that. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think there's any more questions for you, Jerry. We're gonna move us. I'm gonna next agenda item. That is the review of the goals and objectives for our calendar year 2022. So you should have received as well in your packet. We have agreed already on most of the objectives, goals and objectives, except for a recommendation that was made that we include an objective that targets the public health mission element of the Earth District. And with that in mind, I took a stab at drafting what could that objective be and what would their activity. So that is the document that Morgan had sent to you all that I would like to open the floor to hear your feedback, to discuss it. And I don't know if we're ready to approve it or if we just need to discuss it and table it for further discussion. So any feedback?
Maybe just so everyone's clear, so the two items that were sent, they were sent earlier today. One of them had the 2021 goals and objectives from last year, which, as you recall, we spent a lot of time working on. And I think those were the ones that Naimeen was saying that I think for the most part we were comfortable with leaving intact. The second attachment to that document, which was entitled the 2022 EJAG goals and objectives, that's basically the one potential new item that Naimeen has drafted for discussion tonight. So just that's so the first document that's headed with 2021 was the existing goals and objectives, which could potentially be rolled over. And then the second one is the potential new item that you all may want to look at and comment on or discuss this evening.
Thank you, Morgan, for that clarification.
Naomi, did that go to us to be on the agenda packet then, right? So in other words, it was a separate email that went out with that?
Yes, that's what he said. I received like 3 different emails, Manuel, so you should have 2. And I believe all the emails came from CTAL. So if you missed any, let us know you have not received it. Maybe you can resend it, and maybe, I don't know if it would be easier for us to perhaps show the document on the screen if that's possible, or would you like me to give an overview of that document? I don't know how you want to proceed.
You know, I don't have it here, and I'm just looking on my emails, and I have the other 3 items, you know, the plan and the 617 stuff.
We should be able to bring it up on the screen, I believe.
Yeah, can you do that? If Naomi, if that would work, that would be great, but I don't want to stop any of the process you got going and what you folks have put together.
No problem. I think it's important everybody has it and is able to review it. So while we do that, I see Derek has his hand up.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. So I'm just looking at the 2022, and that's this 2022 one that came out later in the day. Then that's basically the draft of the one that you prepared and sent in for consideration, am I correct?
Correct. You were breaking up, Derek, but I think you were saying that if the 2022 is the one that has only one objective, the public health objective, and that's correct. So it would be adding this objective to everything that is in the 2021 document.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. I printed up the 2022 one, and the 2022 one doesn't break everything down by goal and objective number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
And which I would recommend that we stay with that format.
Go ahead.
Because the one that we are looking at that says 2022, it just sort of all runs together. So I would definitely want to suggest that we stay that, and then your 2022 one, where does it peel off? I'm looking at goal and objective number 10 from the 21 deal. And that the last one there was work with the district to provide advice on future enhancements, etc. Basically, are you wanting to add this entire 2-page 2022 thing that you did to the existing one from last year?
Correct. And that was not my only my idea. This was a request or a suggestion that was made by another EJAG member when we were discussing the adoption of the 2022 plan. But a short answer to your question is yes, it will be adding a complete whole different objective, which is the one that the 2-pager that I'm sending. Obviously, all the other objectives are really short and concise. I just
So
had a lot of
whole
excitement thinking of what would that look like? And that's why I created this extensive objective for your consideration.
Okay, and then so I've read through your deal a couple of times. I'm not 100% clear on what the biomonitoring is going to look like today and what it's going to look like in 2 years. I don't want to see us open the door to something that will ever allow ARB or the state of California to require air monitoring in people's homes or private property. So we do have an obligation to protect private property rights.
Yeah.
And so I do want to see some way that we make sure that never happens in whatever we're writing up or preparing or putting together. And then also I can see, unless you've already done it, that the part you added on is so extensive. I would really, I'd like to have some input from the district on this. And because we're really shifting heavy into the health base, which I've always supported that. You know, that's probably been one of my pet peeves, like Kevin even. The idea of cleaning up the health cleaning up the air was the effect on the air of health. But we also have to be careful that we don't fall. And we're already on a slippery slope with 617. That could go in a wrong direction if the wrong people ever got control of it. You don't want air police knocking on people's doors. So we do want to make sure that when you start getting into this biomonitoring, and I'm hearing about in-home monitoring and things like that, our monitors in the school classrooms are going to lead to monitors in the homes. I don't know how we're going to protect the public, but we need to protect the public. And I don't know where you'd want to go on that. And I don't know if we need to maybe think about having it's great that you put this together, but I'm kind of feeling like we need a committee, an ad hoc meeting, or the subcommittee needs to meet on this and kind of flesh through it.
Sure. And the problem was that nobody did anything in the subcommittee. So I took it upon myself to write it because nobody was doing it.
I never got a call for a meeting though from anybody.
Okay, I'll take that. The other thing is, just because we agree on this document, that we don't have to agree to it to approve it tonight. That's just the first time you're reading it, and that we can certainly continue the discussion in a subcommittee meeting. But to your point about the staff, I have just sent it to Morgan. I think that the steps that we have taken in the past is that we first agree on our work plan or our action plan, and then it goes to the APCO, which ultimately has a final decision of saying, yes, all these objectives look great, we're going to adopt it. So it's not that just because we agree on this, it's going to become effective. It still has to go to the APCO. And correct me if I'm wrong, Morgan.
No, that's definitely correct. I'm sure you're right. But so my where I'm at right now, leaning at right now is I'd be more inclined to want to approve last year's and carry it across again for this year, knowing that we're not limited to doing this once a year, rather than trying to add something that we really haven't all worked on and then maybe take it off later. I think we could meet our requirement to the district and to the governing board. We could approve the existing one for this next year, and then we could work through the stuff that you came up with, which some of it's really good, and then finesse that, and then we could always at another meeting, we could add it to it. There's nothing that precludes us from adding to it.
That's your point of view is taken. I will now allow Mr.
Thank you.
Ferraz to give his comment and then hear from others. Go ahead.
Maybe, Naimeen, if I could, just process-wise, because there was a process question that came up, maybe I can just clarify two things. First, in terms of the process that led up to this being brought back here today, if you recall back in January when this item was first brought up, there was some discussion at that point in time, and then the recommendation was to form an ad hoc subcommittee, which consisted of Ms. Martinez, Mr. Helm, Mr. Brazil, and Mr. Williams. That subcommittee met in February, I believe it was. I think it was ahead of the February EJAG meeting. And at that time, there was discussion around kind of what Ms. Martinez has brought out in terms of retaining the work that was done last year on the 2021 goals and objectives, but exploring this avenue of adding a public health related objective. And at that time, Ms. Martinez had volunteered, I believe, to come together with some draft language for that. She had provided that to the district a week or so ago. We had sent that out to the subcommittee members last week for comment. Although it was, albeit it was, short turnaround. We didn't receive any comment back to date, but then obviously I think this provides a good forum. So I just wanted to clarify that the process that's led us to where we're at here today. There has been some meetings of the committee and then some back and forth that's happened with the proposals that are here. Now this is the first time that we've had any in-person discussion of the item. And then secondly, Ms. Martinez is correct. I mean, the way that the goals and objectives work, just so everyone's clear, is that the body comes up with a set of recommendations that then go to the district, and then we make sure that we evaluate them and make sure that they conform with the bylaws, the guiding principles that the board has adopted for this body, as well as conform with the Brown Act and other things that may, other overarching requirements that may come to bear that may affect what these goals and objectives are, and the specific metrics and milestones and actions that may be contained within them. So that overall is the process. I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear on that, and also clear on the subcommittee process that's led up to tonight.
Keith, your hand is up.
Yeah, just my concern would be that we want to make sure that we do not subject this board to any form of bias or unilateral agendas, even if it's an inference to same. As a balanced public body, we have to remain transparent and keep those frequencies intact.
How would the proposed language do that?
I'm not here to argue that. I mean, I'm just looking at the overall.
Yeah, and I think that if that's your opinion, I would like to have an example of where you are seeing that so that we can see what needs to be changed.
No, I'm saying if you're going to submit a unilateral suggestion to the board, it probably should travel through all the channels of being tested against everybody's opinion.
And that's what is happening right now, isn't it?
That's all I'm asking.
That's what we're doing.
Naimeen?
Yes, Mr. Kuna.
Yeah, listen, first thing is thank you. I know sometimes what it is when you have to do things and whatever, but you're suggesting to us to get this document and to review it and go through the processes and then bring it back and then discuss what you have proposed to be added to what the original was. I look way back on my email and I got something that looks like probably on Wednesday maybe. So I went way back and I found it. But is that okay with you, like if we take this document and we go through it and then your subcommittee, of course, and then bring it back, because I think it warranties your time you've taken.
Absolutely.
And if there's anything wrong, then let's bring it back. And you've had an open door to that. You haven't closed anybody's doors. And so.
Not at all.
I think I would be very much in favor of you meeting with the committee and the subcommittee and then, but allow us time and then bring this back for our next EJAG meeting and let's make a decision at the next meeting and discuss this as adults. But I want to thank you though for first doing it. You did something that wasn't happening and you took it upon, and I understand that and I appreciate that. So if that's okay with you and with Morgan, and if we have to have a vote on that, that's fine. But I think you have something that you've offered and for us to review it, and then whatever we believe is what needs to be there, then we add it to the existing or whatever the wishes of the board is. But I want to thank you for taking the initiative though, and at least putting something down. So thank
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And that was the intent, just to have something on paper or, or a digital screen that we can start the discussion. I'm not saying we have to prove this tonight. I'm just saying this is just to start the discussion. I'm perfectly fine with the recommendation. And we have here, so probably we should start and see other ideas or hear other ideas. But Derek suggested that we approve the 2021 and table this for further discussion and maybe incorporate it, I don't know, at the end of this year when we discuss 2023. So that was one suggestion, if I understood you correctly. Manually saying, why don't we take it to the subcommittee, flesh more the ideas, and then bring it back to the EJAG at our next meeting for a recommendation of not only Nayamin, but the entire subcommittee. So those are two slightly different, but ideas of how we can proceed. So I think I saw Kit's hand raised first, but Laura has not spoken. So if you allow me, I will give her the preference. And so it will be then Keith and then Derek. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. I wanted to echo Manuel as well. Thank you for putting that together. I know that was a lot of work. But I also wanted to throw my support with, I think that we could probably take a vote and go ahead and approve 2021. And I agree that I would like more time to review the 2022 edition. So if I don't know if those are motions yet or not, but I just wanted to add.
But it's looking like a motion. So let me hear what Keith and Derek has to say. But if you allow me, that could be one of the motions that we can take to a vote.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Keith and then Derek.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the board is absolutely clear on what my intent was and what my message was. It was for public transparency. That was my reference. It had nothing to do with the context, content, or the person that drafted the document. I just wanted to make sure that we meet the test of those transparencies. That's all.
Thank you, Keith. Derek?
Oh, thank you. And I also appreciate all your hard work because there were times that I did the same thing when I was in your chair. And sometimes you just sort of had to do it. I would just want to go on record so that you have this, the 2 points. Basically, you did a great job on this document. I only had a couple of concerns. One, on the last item of yours, I'd like to have a definition of the biomonitoring, what that exactly is going to be, define it and what it is and what it can do and what it can't do, just so we are clear going in. And then, but the other one is, and this is where we might bump heads a little bit, I would actually vote to remove that whole block that talks about hiring a consultant. I think we've got the staff in the district and enough participation in the group that we don't need to spend money on outside consultants when we don't have problems.
Yeah.
Those would be the only two things that I would actually even have to say about it. If I were to drop dead tomorrow and you had an ad hoc meeting and I couldn't be there, you could say,
Okay.
oh, that's what Mr. Williams said.
Naomi, where's that document at? I haven't seen it.
It was sent out. It was a separate email that came also from CTAO and it had the only two documents. It's one that says 2021 objectives, and then the other one that says 2022.
I don't
So it
remember
was
getting
one
that.
of the
Steve, can you
three emails
resend
that
that,
were
Steve?
sent.
I don't remember getting that. Can you resend it, Steve?
Okay, but I was
Yes,
just
please,
wrapping,
I will send it to you.
I was just wrapping up through the chair. If Ms. Catelli's motion was a motion, I would second that.
I don't think
Okay.
it was Larson, right? Laura?
Well, Laura was suggesting that that could become a motion. So if you allow me, I'll go and hear from Orcho, and then we'll come back and you can formalize your motion and second it, okay? So Orcho,
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to table it to our next meeting, if that's possible, get more clarification. I didn't see that also. I could have missed it, but that's my recommendation on my part.
so your motion is to table the whole item?
Right.
Okay,
Okay, the next one.
okay, Tom, go ahead.
What was Laura's motion?
Laura's was, well, can you repeat it, Laura? I don't want to, misinterpret you.
Sure. So my motion was to adopt the 2021 document and have us read through the 2022 and come back our next meeting and discuss it again.
Yeah. Same.
Okay, so it's slightly different to what Orchel suggested. Orchel, are you okay with that being the motion? Would you feel okay supporting it or seconding it?
That'll be fine with me.
Okay, so we have a motion. I will put Laura as the person make the motion.
I'll second.
Adopt the 2021 goals and the document that was shared to come back and review that 2022 additional objective. And we can, if you allow me, we can do that as a subcommittee and then bring it back to the consideration of EJAG at our next meeting. Would you feel comfortable with that motion?
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Can we do a roll call, please?
Just two quick items through the chair. Just for one, first off, point of clarification. So the 2021 document was last year. So if we were to consider that an adopted, it would be adopted as the 2022 goals and objectives. And then next month, perhaps following a subcommittee, we can consider amending the now adopted 2022 to add an additional item. So I just wanted to make that, I think that's what everyone's saying. I just wanted to make sure that. And then secondly, because it is an action item, we need to go out to the public before taking roll call.
Okay. Thank you for that point of order. So I think we're all in agreement with that. It's not going to be the 2021, it will be the 2022 goals and objectives. And we're going to review the additional goal and objective, discuss it at the subcommittee and bring it back for a potential addition at our next meeting. So are there do we open it up for public comments? Is that what you are saying, Morgan, or comments from our?
Naeem, I think, I'm sorry, but point of order, I think that you have to remain calling it the 2021. That's being adopted.
That is exactly what Morgan said, that we already have a 2021 approved and adopted goals and objectives.
Okay, I thought I misunderstood, Morgan.
No.
Sorry.
Morgan, can you clarify? You're saying that we need to open it up for comments of the EJAG or public comments?
Well, if there's no more comments of the members, then we would need to go to the public before we took action on the item.
Okay. Any additional comments from our EJAG members before we open it up? Okay. Are there any public comments on this item, C?
Yes, we do. Mary Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the staff person. I'm not familiar with you. I didn't write down your name, but to call the question. This is a public meeting. The materials that you're discussing are not available to the public. And this is for environmental justice. And I think it would behoove everyone to consider that materials are available, all materials are available to anyone. And it could have been as simply as adding another link to your agenda and linking in these documents that you're referring to. And I think that it should be a priority that all materials are available. And this is not the only meeting that I have gone to in the last month where I'm wondering if there's going to be an opportunity for public comment before a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth, and I apologize for my for jumping the order and not open it up for public comments. I will ask the staff if we can resolve or address this issue that was mentioned of not having these materials available for the public. Maybe we can make sure that there's a link to these materials in the website where the meeting is announced, so that anybody wishing to attend have the opportunity to review the materials as well. So thank you for that comment. If we don't have any other public comments, are we ready for a roll call, please?
I do not see any more public comment.
Okay, so let's take a vote, please.
Okay. Ms. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Ms. Guttel,
Yes.
Ms. Vielma,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Cryer,
Yes.
Mr. Cunha,
Yes.
and through the chair, Ms. Dean is on. Ms. Dean, I just wanted to let you know we have asked to see if you wanted to promote over to the panelist side, if you can accept.
Okay.
And Ms. Dean, if you wish to vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you all and welcome, Ms. Dean. So with that, we're gonna move to our next item, which is the update on AB 836 Clean Air Center Pilot Program and the new residential cleaner rooms pilot program that I had mentioned in my earlier comments.
All right. Well, good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Dodds, Program Manager in the Grants and Incentives Department, and it's my pleasure to be here with you this evening to talk about and provide you updates on our Clean Air Centers program, as well as the new pilot program that was just approved for clean air rooms for Valley residents. Do we have the presentation to pull up? Or? That's okay, no problem. Okay, thank you, guys. So as by way of a brief background, your committee is well aware that California continues to experience worsening drought conditions, which also elevate the risk and severity of wildfire impacts. The pollution that we experience from wildfires is enormous and can well exceed the total emissions from Valley industrial and mobile sources. And these excessive PM and ozone emissions can have significant impacts to public health. The district has prioritized providing accurate and timely health protective air quality information to the public, especially during wildfire events. And we've also utilized numerous resources dedicated to public notification of air quality conditions and steps that the public can take in order to protect their public health including collaboration with the public, media, land managers, schools, public health officers, and other stakeholders. And we've also utilized our RAN system as well as EPA Air Now to provide residents current air quality information in their area, as well as social media posts to provide updates as far as air quality information might go. I think this image just kind of demonstrates the impact that wildfire smokes can have not only in our valley, but throughout the state as well. So as part of the district's prioritization of public health information during wildfire smoke events, the district and other valley public health agencies urge residents to take certain actions to stay safe during these events. This is including advising residents to stay indoors in a clean air space when feasible, and utilizing portable air cleaners or high efficiency filters to remove fine particulates. In addition, through grant funding that was made available in the state budget, the district is working to create a network of clean air centers, which are intended to provide the public a network of easily accessible facilities to help minimize health effects of wildfire smoke for vulnerable communities throughout the district. The district recently launched the new Clean Air Centers pilot program, which was established under AB 836 and provides the district $750,000 in funding to purchase portable air cleaners that can be utilized in these publicly accessible locations. Program guidelines were established by CARB and provide the valley resources needed to create these clean air centers that might be in schools, community centers, sports centers, libraries, and other types of publicly accessible buildings. The overall concept for this program is to provide the funding to purchase portable air filters or air cleaners, which would then be deployed at these publicly accessible locations during periods when the valley is impacted by wildfire smoke. These clean air centers, which would be similar to cooling centers that we see in the summer, would offer these our vulnerable populations a respite from wildfire and other smoke events. So in terms of program implementation, we opened our initial program solicitation on May 1st, and we're currently reviewing applications that were submitted during the solicitation for completeness and eligibility. In addition to our review, CARB must also review and approve projects on our list prior to any funding being awarded. We anticipate that the initial portable filters will be deployed later this summer. Following the close of our first solicitation, we immediately opened a second solicitation, which is currently still open, and will close on July 15th. Application materials for this program are on our district's website, and our program staff are available and eager to help answer any questions that somebody might have about the program or to assist in completing an application. Once these clean air centers are established, the district will notify the public of locations of these clean centers when they're available during the wildfire smoke events. So in addition to the Clean Air Centers program that we're currently operating, the district governing board last week approved the implementation of a new pilot program, which is expected to distribute air filtration devices to residents in valley disadvantaged communities for use in their homes. These HEPA air filtration devices can reduce PM indoors by more than 90%. These devices come in a variety of makes and models with price and various specifications varying based on their room size and capacity to clean the air. We've, as mentioned kind of earlier, increasingly encouraged the use of these types of air filtration devices during wildfire events to ensure that residents in a home have a dedicated space with safe indoor air quality during smoke events. The goal for program implementation is to partner with a local valley business and community-based organizations to distribute air filtration units to residents in low-income and disadvantaged communities, essentially free of charge, so that there's no out-of-pocket expense to the end user. In terms of some specific program elements, as mentioned, the eligible participants would be residents in disadvantaged communities within the district boundaries. We would use the Cal EnviroScreen tool to define and what a disadvantaged community is. Residents would need to provide some sort of proof of residency as part of participating in the program. We want to make sure that these devices are going to residents within the disadvantaged community. So we want to verify that information to the extent that we possibly can in terms of approving their participation. The district governing board currently approved up to $250,000 in funding for this program, and we intend to distribute funds equitably throughout the valley based on the population of each county on a first come, first served basis, depending on program demand. If some areas are having much higher demand than others, we may need to look at shifting funding from one county to the other. But we want to make sure that these funds get distributed throughout the valley and not just taken up by one area versus another area. In terms of eligible costs, the district will purchase these CARB certified high efficiency residential air filtration units and also provide one additional filter element. So they'll have a replacement filter in addition to the filter that comes with the unit originally. And I think I mentioned that we intend to partner also with an equipment manufacturer or distributor and a locally based retailer to purchase units in bulk for distribution to eligible participants so we can get the best possible price. We estimate that these devices may cost between $150 and $300. So we're looking at potentially between 800 and 1,600 units that may be distributed as part of this pilot program. And we expect to coordinate outreach through local community-based organizations to reach Valley residents who are most in need of this type of assistance, and also use social media and other channels that we might need to help reach communities that may not be served by various community-based organizations. And just in terms of a few next steps, we're working quickly to develop and launch and implement the program based on the approved guiding principles that were presented to our board last week. And we'll be working closely with retailers and CBOs to ensure successful outreach and hope to have the program launched very soon in time for the upcoming wildfire season. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and certainly happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you for that presentation, Derek. Derek.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that presentation. I only had one quick question, and maybe it was there and I missed it, but I don't think so. I would really like to see some way that the program could be weighted based on data coming from your monitors in the different areas within the Cal Enviro Screen disadvantaged community areas. And the reason I'm throwing that in there is, you know, one year I remember Fresno was the most severely impacted area with fire smoke from the fires. But traditionally, probably 8 times out of 10, it's going to be Bakersfield, it's going to be Kern County. It just sits down there at the bottom of that hole and it collects everything. And everything kind of north of Visalia can start to clear up pretty quickly compared to Kern County. And I would just hate to see a lot of those resources go into the other counties if they didn't really need, based on what you're getting from the monitors. If there was some way that you could direct the percentages of units that would be available based on what the monitors are telling you are getting the most saturation and the lengthiest saturation. It would seem very doable to me because we've already got those monitors everywhere. That would be my only suggestion.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, hi, thank you. It's a great report. I'm just tallying some of these numbers here. 1,600 times 300 is about just south of $500,000. Is that right? You're looking at maybe a startup program, pilot program, of about $500,000.
It's $250,000.
250,000. I wasn't aware of this, but I had a meeting with the water board the other day, and they informed me that they have a free water program. And in that free water program, they found a certain degree of fraud where people would receive these free water and then turn around and resell it. So did you guys include any kind of a policy or policing part of the program that would prevent fraud or eliminate or help slow down?
I'd be happy to answer the question.
Talk
For all
to
of our
you.
grant and incentive, I'm sorry, Chair, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I didn't give you time to respond to Derek's question. So if you want to address that one too before we go to
I'm
Orcho.
sorry.
Sure, I'll try and tackle both questions at one time. If I could, I'll start with Keith's, well, it's a little bit fresher. As with all of our grant incentive programs that we operate here at the district, there'll be an application process that we utilize. Somebody will have to, provide their name, address, phone number, some documentation that indicates that they are residents in a disadvantaged community. Very similar to what we might have done recently with our lawnmower exchange events, where we collected similar information and people were able to get new lawnmowers. We've seen very few instances where somebody is really trying to game the system. There is a little bit of work that somebody has to do, but we want to make it as easy as possible. I feel like with the process that we have in place and some of the information that we ask for, that those types of situations where somebody's attempting to game the system is very minimal. To address Derek's question, I think the main thing that we need to keep in mind in terms of trying to implement a program like this at this point is this is a pilot program. It is intended to see how this could work effectively on a larger scale, if that's something that we can expand to in the future. And really all residents of the Valley have been impacted by wildfire smoke events at one time or the other, depending on the year and location of the fire. So really the goal of this is to try and get widespread distribution throughout the Valley, because so many of our residents can experience the effects of the wildfires at any given time throughout the year.
I had to finish with my comment. The other part of my comment, question to you was on the units. When you deliver a unit, are we making these units available to people with that is going to create a hardship for electricity to run them, to pay for the power bill to run them? And if so, why couldn't we design a system that comes as a solar, basically a battery powered or solar power to run the system, so we have a free running system? Just an idea to throw out.
That's a good suggestion, and as we work towards implementation, we can take a look to see what those opportunities might be.
Thank you.
Thank you. So in the order in which I see the hands, we'll go to Orcho and then SB.
Thank you, Chairman. Question I have is, what is a disadvantaged community? Or how does one become a disadvantaged community? And what would be the qualification? Did anybody get them if they're impacted? Or you have to have like a doctor's note or some type of physical issue to qualify for one? That's a question I have. Being as a council or mayor of my city here, Pro Tem, I'm in an agricultural business, and I know I came down to Grapevine today. There was a fire there at the Grapevine from the lightning and stuff, and I'm sure those communities there are impacted, but it's not all the time. But how you qualify as a community to be on the list for that?
Sure, I think that's a really good question. The state has a tool called CalEnviroScreen, and they've looked at the impacts from various sources of environmental impacts that a community might have. And it's typically they look at each census tract to be considered a disadvantaged community. You're basically in the top 25% of census tracts that are impacted the most by a variety of environmental types of sources. The Valley is home to a significant number of those disadvantaged communities. And so as part of the process that the state has looked at in determining those disadvantaged communities, that's how they rank. we can certainly help with any kind of specific information about which communities are captured in there. It's a significant portion of the valley, and similar to how we operate our vehicle replacement program that's based on being a resident of a disadvantaged community. It typically requires that if your zip code contains a disadvantaged community, then that area is considered a disadvantaged community, or that zip code is considered a disadvantaged community. So we'd probably be looking at a very similar process and when we're implementing this program, to utilize a zip code type basis for those residents that are within that zip code. If there's disadvantaged communities, then that zip code is kind of considered a disadvantaged community. So it would cover a pretty significant portion of the valley, but it really is kind of focused on, you know, the ones that are most impacted by pollution.
Before I open it up for SP to ask her question or give her comment, I just want to add that in addition to the burden of pollution, and that includes air pollution, water pollution, all kinds of environmental factors, it also, Calimaris screen also takes in consideration social vulnerability. So poverty level, education level, and other socioeconomic indicators. So that's also factoring. And I can tell you that Taft it's considered a disadvantaged community, if I'm not mistaken. So go ahead.
Now, if you have like hot weather and everything, and you have your AC on to keep cool, wouldn't that bring pollution inside the house, or they have something special to trap that, keep the house cool?
If, you know, obviously the air district has more expertise on this, but definitely if you have an AC, you can just continue changing your filters and use the MERP 13s, which are thicker and can filtrate more particles. But the problem, and to my knowledge, that the residents that are more impacted are those that have swamp coolers, because the way they function, they bring a lot of the outdoor air into the house, and there's no proper filtration. There's no like that filter that you have with your AC that you can change constantly. They don't have that with a swamp cooler. So that makes them much more vulnerable, especially when there is wildfire smoke.
Thank you for that. Reason I was bringing it up, I was in a hospital for 35 days because of COVID, and didn't quite almost didn't make it, but fortunately, by God's grace, I survived. But you know, I have oxygen, I have all kinds of equipment and stuff in my house and stuff. But when we have a fire in the hills, I can, even though I have AC and stuff, I can still smell the smoke and things. That's why I was kind of I posed that question to you.
Thank you. And Morgan, I don't know if you want to add anything else about that before we turn it over to SP and Derek.
Yeah, I think you handle it pretty well, Naimeen. But yeah, in general, most HVAC systems will have a filter on it. Now, there's different levels of those filters that are characterized by the MERV rating, and so that oftentimes you need to make sure with your HVAC potential maintenance company, otherwise that your system can handle different types of filters and things like that. But generally, as you go up in number, you get more protection from different sizes of pollution. Now, that also assumes that your house is properly sealed and windows are sealed and other, weatherization things are in play. And so, and there's often programs, to help with those things in terms of winter energy efficiency and weatherization that other entities operate to help with some of those issues. But there are still many people in the valley that either have swamp coolers or no cooling at all and rely on having their windows open. And even with it, depending on where the location is, the fire is, as we've seen before, even with high levels of filtration on their HVAC system, they can be totally overwhelmed. And so some people are using extra devices, extra filtration devices to help supplement what they may have in their HVAC system, especially those that may have sensitivities or other underlying conditions that may make them particularly vulnerable to smoke.
Thank you. Sorry for the wait. SP, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Well, I want to first and foremost acknowledge and thank the, in terms of this pilot program, it sounds like a great opportunity for our environmental justice communities. And I wanted, I understand that on the south end of the valley, there's a lot more, in terms of, that being like catching, the whole like bull factor and what have you. But us doing like the work in all of our EJ communities out here in the San Joaquin County area, which we've been working with the COVID outreach with the governor's office and now public health with UCLA. And we've been doing that since COVID, and especially last summer and this summer. We literally had to pull people like, just so many days in a row and pull them off the streets so that they can do phone banking, because we didn't want to endanger them with all of the pollutants that we had going on. So basically, that red zone affects us here. And I think staff just mentioned something about it depends on the location of the fire. So I think that on our end of the valley, firsthand knowledge, being out there, in terms of us walking those streets, we have the same kind of effect, especially when it's, up in the like Sonoma area, what have you, those type of fires. So, even if you're double masked, that's outside, and then people have talked about the inside air pollutants. So I think it's a great opportunity to do the pilot and to do it throughout the valley, and then get the data that we need from the pilot program. So we're ready to help and roll out the information and get it out to our community members. Like I said, we're out there right now pounding the pavement and, up to like 5 zip codes in this area. So whatever help is needed, we're here. And again, thank you.
Thank you, SP. And I agree, there's fires in the northern part of the state that come and impact San Joaquin. Modesto, I remember, was heavily impacted last year too. So, I would want to say that it's just one part of our valley. Sadly, it's the entire valley and the entire state. Derek.
Had to unmute real quick. Just one other thought that came to me. Would there be any way to, or would it be considered equitable to let, since we're focusing, there are a lot of people with respiratory conditions and asthmatics. Is there some way that if they file and provide their documentation for that they could be moved up to the head of the line because of their health conditions, if they don't already have that provided from some other source?
That's a especially, I guess, if we as I expect would happen, we have a high demand and that we, go through the $250,000 like this, that probably just gonna prove that there's a high need, and, hopefully the board is open to, allocate more funds in the future, but definitely if we need to prioritize, I think that's a great idea. One other thing, another comment I had is that maybe in the application, we could also, not only ask that they live in a disadvantaged neighborhood, but also maybe ask income, maybe there's a person that, still lives in an old neighborhood, but they have more wealth than others. So I would rather, ask that question as well to make sure that it's going not only to the people that have health needs, but also that might not have the economic, means to purchase these devices on their own. But I do have one more question regarding the other pilot that you mentioned, that you already closed the first round and of solicitations and you're having the second one. Can you briefly mention, and I know we're running a little bit late on our agenda, but can you mention how many applications did you receive in the first solicitation?
Sure. So we really only received a handful of applications in the first solicitation. We're doing a lot of outreach to try and get more participation. Essentially, the applications that we did receive came from Tulare County and City of Porterville for a number of units. And so we're hoping to get more widespread participation. We've certainly had a lot of phone calls from various jurisdictions and areas looking to participate. So we're hoping to continue to get the word out and continue to accept applications to be able to spend this funds and get these clean air centers out there. Regarding your previous suggestions. I think there are good suggestions to keep in mind as we work towards implementation on this new pilot program. And I think we just want to make sure anything that we do in terms of implementation allows for some ease of end user experience while also ensuring that we're meeting the guiding principles that were approved by the board.
Thank you. Orchel, is that hand a new hand, or is the same that you raised before?
You guys answered the question pretty good. The only other one I would need to, if I wanted to add to it, would be with all
Go
these units and stuff, the energy impact on the state grid, but how much energy it would take, because we're getting brownouts and all that everywhere. Would they, those people who have those units, will they qualify for PG&E? Where they guarantee that there's the energy for brownout, that they would have first priority getting electricity turned back on in case of that?
Yeah, I don't know how to necessarily answer the questions. In terms of these residential units, they're not huge. They're fairly small. I don't know exactly what the electrical demands of them are, but they're not anything more than a normal little home appliance.
Thank you. Keith? You're muted.
Thank
I
you
believe
very
you
much.
guys have the data points that are available that would, if the pilot program is successful, what would be the projected cost to initiate an overall full valley-wide program to deliver or delivered units? Do you have any idea what the population numbers would be on that? And what that would
No, I think
look
that's
like?
one thing that we would want to keep in mind in terms of what the pilot program looks like is what it would take for larger scale deployment. This pilot program is valley-wide, obviously at smaller numbers as we launch the pilot program. But that's some of the information we hope to kind of glean from this is, what kind of participation, what does participation look like, and what would it take to have a larger program?
Well, I think you could probably guess at that. Maybe staff could put something together to give us a rough idea what the actual the high side, the low side would be on the demand side, if that's possible. Morgan, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that with any pilot, that's what you're trying to, we know how many people are in the valley, and we can estimate about how many people live in these communities, but in terms of like how many people have demand and what the participation levels are at, and as we go through the process, whether or not we establish things like income, caps or other things like that, as has been mentioned, those are all the things that we have to figure out, and then ultimately, the board would have to approve and agree on guidelines. And so it's really hard to estimate at this point, what a future program would look like, or even, what funding would be available. Would we be able to get, appropriate levels of funding? Because that always plays in as well. Most of our programs are very oversubscribed. We never have enough money to do everything. And so those are the things, though, when we do a pilot, we gather that information, and then we develop a program that we think will hopefully reach the largest audience of need based on the funding that we have available.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I don't see any more hands raised. So we are going to move to the next agenda item, which is are we supposed to open it up for public comments? I don't want to do it again.
You don't have to, but the general practice of EJAG is to go out to the public.
Okay, my apologies. Do we have any public comments or anyone in attendance from the public?
I do not see any public comments.
Okay, thank you. Well, now we're going to move on again to Jerry to hear about what's happening with the ozone federal standard.
Good evening again, Jessie Fierro again, to tell you about what's going on with our ozone plan. You've heard about ozone plans before. There are many ozone standards out there, and we've done planning efforts for many of them, and the timelines do in fact overlap. We've adopted plans from the 1997 and 2008 ozone standards already. Those plans are still getting our region benefits and improving ozone air quality at our monitoring sites. And we're working on the newest plan for the newest 8-hour ozone standard. It is our 2022 ozone plan that addresses EPA's most stringent 8-hour ozone standard, which was established in 2015. Every plan builds on the plans before it, and our air quality plans have been a primary vehicle for improving air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. It's certainly not the only vehicle for improving air quality, but it is one of the key ones. After each plan adoption, we implement plan strategies through rule adoptions, outreach, additional research, and incentive programs, and each attainment plan is just one checkpoint in this continuing effort to improve our air quality. For the 2022 ozone plan, the district and CARB are working together to address the most stringent ozone standard, and we have seen tremendous progress in our ozone concentrations. I'll have some data to share here in a moment. And this progress has been achieved thanks to the emissions reductions that are occurring under the districts and CARB's control measures that have been adopted. So we and CARB have adopted many control measures over the past decade and even over the past couple of years. And as these regulations are implemented, many of these regulations take a few years to become fully implemented, especially some of the mobile source measures that CARB is adopting. You get new emissions reductions every year, and you get continued air quality improvements every year. And so it is good that we are seeing a lot of emissions reductions still happening now and into the coming years. And thanks to this progress, we are on track to attain the 1-hour ozone standard. We already attained the 1-hour ozone standard, and we are on track to attain the 84 ppb 8-hour ozone standard. That's the 1997 ozone standard, ahead of the 2023 target. The measures in our 2022 plan include the numerous regulations with new emissions reductions in the coming years, such as the rules listed here, which were all adopted fairly recently. And we're continuing to evaluate additional innovative measures, such as measures to reduce emissions from commercial landscaping, zero emission heating and other building electrification measures, and so on. CARB is also proposing several measures for our 2022 ozone plan as part of their state SIP strategy that would benefit many regions, not just the San Joaquin Valley, and those measures include the state truck and bus regulation and advanced clean fleets. This slide here shows you the emissions reductions that have already occurred in the past. And it's pretty staggering just to see the amount of work that has been done. And I have to remind myself now and then just the magnitude of the emissions reductions. In 1980 certainly wasn't a long time ago, but to see that our NOx emissions were over 800 tons per day in 1980. And now in 2021, 2022, we're under 200 tons per day. That's pretty staggering. I remember when I worked on the 2007 ozone plan, our NOx emissions reductions at that point were around 400, 450. So we've cut those NOx emissions in half over just about 15 years. So that is really encouraging that the controls that are being adopted are effective in reducing emissions. And it's also noteworthy that at this point, the stationary source portion of these emissions is getting smaller and smaller. So the green portion of this chart, that's the portion that is under the district's regulatory authority. So it makes our challenge really daunting, the fact that we don't have regulatory authority over a lot of the emissions that are still occurring, but we're continuing to look wherever we can, and we're continuing to encourage our partner agencies to do their part to reduce emissions from those federal sources. As a result of the emissions reductions, the 8-hour ozone design values are in fact improving. The design value is your official mathematical attainment test calculation. And you see overall, we are seeing a downward trend, and we are getting closer and closer to the various levels of EPA's ozone standards. You can see we're right on the cusp of that 97 standard. And then all that progress is getting us closer to the 2008 and 2015 standards. And yet we still have a ways to go, and we still have more work to do, and that's what the 2022 ozone plan is all about. Here's another way to look at the ozone progress spatially. And this chart's nice because it shows you colors and it shows you the San Joaquin Valley as a whole. And you can see in 2000, we were still seeing very high, those purple areas, those are very high 8-hour ozone design values. The level that we're going for the 2022 ozone plan is 70. So that's one of those green areas. So even in 2020, even though you can see the improvement, we still need even more improvement over the next decade and a half as we get to that the attainment deadline for the 2022 ozone plan, which is 2037. Federal action is critical. There's no way around it. We're going to keep looking at the emissions we can control, but we cannot reach the Valley's public health goals and our ozone attainment goals if the federal government and the state don't do their part to reduce the mobile sources under their control. And this chart, this is actually a statewide chart that was put together by CARB for their state SIP strategy. And it shows how California sources, and that's the blue line, and so that's not even the local sources. Those are the sources regulated by the California Air Resources Board. Those emissions statewide have decreased dramatically from the year 2000 to the present. That's almost where those lines intersect there in the middle. And then out into the future, we expect continuing emissions reductions through fleet turnover and continued implementation of CARB sources. Federal sources, they're just not making the same progress. And so the federal sources are surpassing state sources at this point. We really need to continue to advocate for EPA to adopt controls for the mobile sources under their control, which will benefit our environmental justice areas. It will benefit our entire region and really all the non-attainment areas in the country, because there are indeed more non-attainment areas as EPA standards become more stringent. So state and federal action on mobile sources really is critical. At this point, the district's regulatory jurisdiction is about 17% of our ozone and PM forming NOx emissions in the Valley. And attainment just isn't viable without those reductions in the mobile sources, which I already stated on the prior slide. These reductions from state and federal sources are also critical for state climate goals and community air toxics impacts as well. So there's a lot of co-benefits that really reiterate the importance of controls on these sources. And it's not your board, this is from the governing board slide, but our governing board has advocated for federal agencies to do their fair share to reduce emissions from sources under the federal regulatory authority. And encouragingly, the federal EPA did recently propose measures to reduce emissions from heavy-duty diesel trucks. And so we are definitely supporting EPA and encouraging them to adopt those measures for the good of our region and other non-attainment areas. Our 2022 ozone plan shows that through the new emissions reductions being achieved by the district and CARB measures, we are achieving an additional 62% in NOx emissions by the 2037 attainment target. So the slide I showed you a while ago, the bar chart that showed you how much emissions reductions were decreasing between 1980 and 2020, emissions are continuing to decrease even further. So a 62% reduction between now and the attainment year. Those are new emissions reductions. The plan relies on those emissions reductions. It relies on an updated emissions inventory and a thorough ambient data analysis. We posted those parts of our plan a few weeks ago. A reasonably available control technology demonstration that was actually adopted a couple of years ago. There is a very thorough and very sciencey weight of evidence analysis and a variety of other technical components that we posted back about a month ago. We are continuing to work on additional required demonstrations for this plan, including reasonable further progress, transportation conformity, contingency measures, and reasonably available control measures. We hope to post those remaining demonstrations in July. The good news is that the initial modeling conducted by CARB in cooperation with the district indicates that the Valley will attain the 70 ppb 8-hour ozone standard in 2037. So, and this analysis includes wildfire impacts. So in that respect, the analysis is conservative. And this analysis also confirms that the Valley is highly NOx limited, which means that our VOC emissions controls are becoming even less effective into the future. And that, again, reiterates the importance of getting those mobile source emissions reductions to keep reducing our NOx. We've been going through a public process on this plan for a few years already. We've been doing governing board updates since February of 2020, updates at CAC, public workshops for about a year and a half now. We just held a workshop back on June 1st. A few weeks ago. Some of you were there at that workshop, and I thank you for that, for sticking around and giving us comments there. We do plan on scheduling an additional workshop in late summer to present the full draft plan, including all the strategy and all the technical support documents. And then the plan would go to our board in late summer or early fall of 2022, and then CARB's board right after that. That concludes my presentation. I'm sorry if I spoke a little fast. I know it's getting late, but I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Thank you, Jerry. Well, that was a lot to take in. So I'll give a couple of seconds, but I see already Keith is ready to ask a question. So go ahead.
On the, Jerry, on the NOx, on the NOx program side of it, what are those limitations? Can you discuss them a little bit?
Oh, about how how we are NOx limited?
Yes.
When I
what is
said that? Yeah. So to create ozone, you need a chemical reaction between NOx and VOCs. When your region is NOx limited, that means that it's the availability of NOx that is controlling how much VOCs are being formed. And so when a region is NOx limited, you can keep reducing VOCs, and it actually does very little to benefit your ozone concentrations, just because there's so much more VOCs, and the NOx is the limiting factor of that chemical reaction. So in a situation like that, you need to prioritize the NOx emissions reductions, because it's the NOx emissions reductions that are going to improve ozone, and not so much the VOC emissions reductions. And that's different from region to region.
Thank you.
Good question.
Can you all hear Jerry? Okay, sorry.
Derek, you're muted.
Okay, I didn't have my hand up, but thank you for asking. No, it was a great presentation. I will, since you gave me the opportunity, I'll just say thank you very much for that presentation. It was very informative.
Thank you. We look forward to the meeting when it's the plan is adopted.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have one more update and we're getting closer to the end of our meeting. So AB 617, our favorite topic, right, Jess?
It's my favorite topic, certainly, and it's my pleasure to be here. I was not here at the last meeting, so just to reintroduce myself, my name is Jessica Olson. I'm the Director of Community Strategies and Resources, and so my department oversees the implementation of AB 617 here at the district level, but also interacts with communities outside of AB 617. That's definitely something you're going to start to hear, I think, a little bit more from us in the future. So just by way of brief update, but definitely Naimeen and others, feel free to add or provide your perspective to some of the updates that I'm going to provide today. So a little bit of brief background or just a reminder, we do have 4 communities that were selected by CARB to be a part of AB 617. The first 3 communities that were selected, so in the first year, South Central Fresno and Shafter, and in the second year, Stockton, those have been in what we call SERP, or Community Emission Reduction Program implementation mode, meaning one of the 2 documents, as you see there on the bottom, the SERP and the Community Air Monitoring Plan, or CAMP, was already adopted by the board, whether it was last year or a couple of years ago in the case of year 1 communities. And so we've kind of been in implementation mode. You've heard me update you often on how we're moving forward with the clean air measures in those plans. Arvin Lamont, which is our most recent community, just last week had their SERP, or Community Emission Reduction Program, approved by our board. This was just such a tremendous effort. I've updated you all several different times on just kind of the community-led process. It was definitely a different process this time. It was the first community to be sort of fully deployed in kind of the middle of the COVID era. So we were almost exclusively online the entire time. with the exception of one in-person meeting we were so grateful to have. We had community co-leads that helped us get us to this position in this place. Gustavo Aguirre Jr. and Bianca Santoyo, they were just both so great to work with and so helpful in getting us to this place. And what you see before you today is just a summary of what that document contains. And really importantly, the summary and the SERP that you see here that the board approved was actually unanimously supported by the CSC, and they recommended that we take the SERP as it was to our governing board. And so the SERP, you can see here just a little summary on the right, has 31 measures, about $30.6 million in incentive funding, and targets getting a total of over 700 tons of reductions across NOx, PM2.5, and VOCs. And there's a variety of different strategies in the SERP that accomplish that. There's incentive-based strategies that get at emissions reductions and exposure reductions. There are several regulatory and enforcement strategies, lots of partnership strategies, and we were so grateful for all our partners, as well as outreach and engagement strategies. So just a little bit of kind of what the next steps are. We often get this question, and it's a little bit interesting. So CARB has, of course, several different communities that adopt SERP each year. And so they go through a process where, of course, our board adopts it. We are going to immediately start implementing. We're already working with the community on next steps, on starting to establish some subcommittees and move a lot of the things forward. But we do have to get CARB board approval. And right now, just for your information, we'll definitely keep updating you. They are planning to go to their board in October. So we're just so grateful, so excited, and it's definitely a chance to celebrate, especially with all the community members that put a lot of hard work and a lot of evenings into this. Just a little bit of progress. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's not just the emissions reduction programs, but definitely the community design air monitoring networks that are very important. We have several different kind of statuses, depending on which community we're talking about, that meet at various different levels to talk about the air monitoring network. In Fresno, we have sort of a co-led, it's both an air monitoring and outreach subcommittee that talks often about how air information in the community can get out into the community. In Shafter, we're working on kind of a couple of different instances of getting a few more monitors deployed. Same thing in Stockton and Arvin Lamont. Now that we've finalized the SERP, we're going to keep moving on and deploying more monitors. Some just recent progress on priority measures, and I know our chair of our meeting today is really familiar with a couple of these. Urban greening and vegetative barriers, we did release, and if you are someone who knows folks that could respond to this, definitely let us know. Some requests for proposals seeking contractors to run programs in both Fresno and South Central and Shafter. And we're also working to finalize a similar RFP for Stockton this month. Similarly, we have a truck reroute study that already went out for RFP. We already selected a contractor and the city approved the contract. And so we're looking to kick off that study, which is just a really great progress in that community. And then finally, you heard earlier about the district-wide pilot program for residential air filtration measures. The CSCs, especially the three that you see here, really have been looking for this actually for a while. And the Stockton community already has that as a part of their SERP. And so there's a subcommittee helping design program recommendations, really similar to a lot of the discussion I've heard already today, prioritizing folks that need it the most. How do we get it into the community? How do we do outreach? And Shafter and South Central Fresno have actually, as CSCs, recommended to the district to add measures to their SERP to get residential air filtration specifically within these disadvantaged EJ communities. And so we're looking to take a board item specifically for the AB 617 communities in the coming months. Just sharing a couple pictures. Last month, I think we were a couple days out, or maybe a week or so out from this event. This is our successful Lawnmower exchange event in South Central Fresno. We've done one in Shafter. We are hoping to do one shortly in Stockton. So definitely making progress there and working with community members. It was just so great. We exchanged about 100 mowers and actually had community members from our CSC who work in the community helping pass out food. It was just a really great time and just nice to see people in person. And then kind of just looking ahead, lots of progress to be made. We have a lot of subcommittees, a lot of work to be had. There's a lot that we need to do. And really, we're about halfway through implementation in our first communities. And so we're just working together to get all the incentives out the door and working to partner with organizations that can help us get the information out. And then finally, I just wanted to share one last slide here. Here on the right, you can see this is a Spanish version. We, of course, have an English version as well of a flyer we worked on community members with, and we're still getting feedback on for getting folks out in the community aware of what 617 is and what opportunities are available to them. And here on the left, this is an example of a flyer that was suggested by community members up in Stockton to pass out to community members as well as just people in the valley about the impacts of fireworks. And so just kind of two examples of some of the outreach community and subcommittee work. And so I will leave you with that. And of course, take any questions or comments you have for me.
Thank you, Jessica. That was great. Any questions for her about the AB 617 update? Okay. I don't see any hand raised. Thank you for the presentation and for all the work. I know that has been very intensive in having all those communities simultaneously going on. So thank you for your work.
And thank you for your support, Naimeen.
Okay, we're approaching the end of our meeting. So any recommendations, suggestions of agenda items that you would like to see included for our next meeting? Derek.
I'm thinking that by the time we get into August, we'll probably have had, I hate to say it, jinx anything by saying we'll have had fires. But if so, I'd love to have an update on where we're at, like we had last year during the that bad spell. If there haven't been any health or pollution issues from big fires, then I would say no. But if there have, then it would be good to know what's going on and what's been happening. Thank you.
Great suggestion. Any other ideas or requests? Keith?
It's not an idea or request, but I just wanted to let the board know and let staff know that I have a contact with PG&E that explained to me what the hardening of PG&E, what wildfire hardening is on their grid system they've been doing for the last year. So everybody knows that hardening means that when they've installed elements and equipment into the system, into the grid, so that if there is any kind of like a wind event or wire strike, short events, any kind of event that happens on a line between two substations, that system is designed to cut power first, then go find out what caused it second. So we may see some good results from that hardening and defense work they've been doing on the grid. Just wanted to give everybody an update on that.
Thank you. Good to hear. Hopefully that helps reduce wildfires. Any other recommendations? I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, someone from the staff, if something comes up, an idea comes up between now and our next meeting, I imagine we can certainly email the staff, in this case, C or Morgan or others, and we could add at that time any other ideas that you might not think of right now, but you would like to add at a later time. Is that correct?
Yeah, we just obviously have to take a look at it and see what goes into putting that together. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll ask, see if there's any members of the public that would like to make any additional comments.
I do not see any public member comments.
Great.
Okay. Well, any EJAG members who would like to make any additional comments? Okay. I don't see any hands raised. So do we need a volunteer for that presentation at the CAC meeting and also at the board meeting in August, or we're good?
I think on the CAC, especially since Mr. Helm and Mr. Williams are on the CAC, one of them may want to note that at least the first portion of the goals and objectives were adopted tonight. In terms of the governing board, I would still suggest maybe we wait until we adopt the full suite of objectives, since there may be some changes there that may be relevant. So that'd be my recommendation.
And I agree, fully agree with it. Any objections to follow those recommendations? Okay, well, Derek and Tom, we're in good hands with you giving that report to the CAC. Go ahead, Derek.
Through the chair, I will defer to our vice chair on that. If for some reason he can't make it to the meeting, then I'm happy to do it. But it's always good that as he's coming up, doing what he's doing with our group, it's good for him to have more FaceTime, I think, with the CAC. It can't hurt. So Tom, if you're able to be there, I'd say you're it. If for some reason you can't be, I'll be glad to take care of it.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind if I can make it. I was unable to make it to the last meeting, and I know that they had to cancel because we didn't have quorum. So, but hopefully, if I can, I'm only the alternate, but then I kind of learned that the primary was elected to a city council in Patterson, and she's usually not there. So maybe I need to go ahead and apply for the primary seat, but I didn't think it was, you know, it would be super important for me to make it to make quorum. So I will definitely put in some extra effort to make those meetings if I can.
Sounds like a plan. And before we adjourn the meeting, I just want to make sure that we are extending that invitation, even if you had not raised your hand to be part of that subcommittee. Now that you have the first version of that additional goal, I would love to invite everyone that would have some time to spare to join the subcommittee meeting. I will work with C and Morgan to come up with some dates, and will be sent through them so that we can agree on a meeting virtually and continue the discussion. Derek?
Just a thought.
I was going to say.
Just a thought, and then I'll shut up. Maybe any of the members want to take their copy if they, maybe not everybody can, we don't want to go over our Brown Act situation on an ad hoc committee, but people could certainly take their paperwork and they could get their red markers out, red pens out, and their highlighters out and write down any thoughts, concerns, or whatever, and shoot that to the district and to our chairman to then open up and show up the committee members.
Great recommendations. Thank you. I was not thinking of the Brown Act, but that's a good precaution. Morgan?
Yeah, so just two things there. I was going to make that same comment. We're limited to 6 people on an ad hoc subcommittee because of Brown Act issues. So if we wanted to add 2 more, if someone wanted to drop off, someone would add, we could definitely do that. Secondly, in terms of Derek's suggestion, which I think is a good one, I would suggest that they send any, because there's also another Brown Act issue revolving around what's called serial meetings. And so you can't like fly emails back and forth between everyone. So
Right.
if you have suggestions on that, go ahead and send those to me and to C, and then we can make sure that those get out to the subcommittee members and we don't run afoul of any Brown Act issues.
Okay, and before we adjourn, just so that we don't go over those 6, can we have a raise of hands of who might want to join that? The only other person besides me that is part of that subcommittee initially is Derek. I think that the other 2 members are not here tonight, so we'll reach out to them. That will be 3. Well, not it's Derek, Tom, and myself, and then 2 more board members, EJAG members. So I think we'll have room for at least 1 more person in case you guys are interested.
And through the chair, Madam Chair, I just had one comment. Just so you know, I'm having knee surgery next Wednesday. If you could give me a few days to recuperate, but I'll definitely not be going anywhere for a while. So I'll be kind of a captive audience, but if you could just wait a couple of days after, and if, you know, I don't think we have to rush it.
No, not at all.
Anyway, but
I I think we can plan for sometime in July, maybe middle of July or something like that.
Yeah, with our, just a heads up on your end, because July is the 1 month of the year, or the 1 month that our board is dark, that's generally the month that many of us take vacation because we don't have the opportunity the rest of the year. And so, it probably will be pretty tough to schedule in July. I would suggest maybe it'd be in very late July or maybe early August. We look some dates, but we'll throw some dates out and check on people's availability.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. And if nothing else, I think we can adjourn our meeting being 7:24, so 6 minutes earlier. Thank you all.
Good night, Madam